This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're live tonight with Kendra Corman for the first time. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
We are live on our Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube channels, and we will be on Newsly later tonight. We are a featured podcast on Newsly. So use coupon code GHOST, and you can get 1 month free premium subscription so you can stop scrolling and start listening. And thank you for being on the program. How are you doing? You're doing
I'm
well.
good.
So
I'm
it's always
good.
it's always fun to have new people on the show, and that's one of the best things about podcasting is being able to, from my bedroom studio here, being able to talk to people all over the world from different parts of life and different things. And you are an expert marketer.
Yes.
Um, you've been doing it for over 15 years. You've working with top brands all over the world, and your passion is marketing and being able to show people how they can add marketing to any type of business. And musicians, just for people to understand, is like I'm primarily a musician and a podcaster talking about musicians, but musicians are business people.
hmm
And we've talked to a lot of business people in the last month, year, even more than a month, like last year. And I think that this is going to be a helpful discussion because, like, artists are business people, and they need to probably think about better ways to market themselves in order to get into those and to get the response they need.
Yes, definitely. I have so much respect for entrepreneurs and musicians, business owners. You're running a business. And so you have to constantly be thinking about your marketing and how you're showing up and where you're showing up, which I think is always really important to think about. And, especially when you get into some niches like music and things like that, you tend to start to get really narrowly focused on where you go and where you market, and how you go about marketing yourself. And you start to pick up a little bit of that sample of one, which is always a little bit dangerous. Oh, this is what I like, so that's where I'll be. But that may
Mhm.
not necessarily be where your audience is.
Yeah, one thing I've learned, since I being a musician, I kind of people ask me, why are you doing podcasting? You should spend all your time being a musician. And what I found is I told them, like, it's a better use of my time than you would think because the podcast has expanded my audience. And so instead of having to pay for bots on Fiverr, I actually get real people who say, "Who's this ghost?" Because I'm talking to all these different people, and it brings people into my brand. And it's been a real natural way to increase my opportunities to do a lot of things in music today. It's not just playing a song or doing a concert. It's like sync licensing, doing music for films, doing music for video games, doing music for Twitch gamers, allowing your music to get licensed, and it's expanded that type of thing. And so I totally agree that the narrow focus that some people have is something that I've tried to avoid as a musician because I call my music expansive because I do multiple genres. I don't like getting pinned down. So my nature is to not get pinned down. So I think I understand where you're coming from.
Well, and I think that you've got the right idea. I mean, as you know, because you've been podcasting since 2016 and doing the video version since 2020, right? And when you start to think about all the additional people you've reached just by interviewing people that might not be inside your regular network because they share it. And then their friends see it and their other contacts see it. And then sometimes some of them share it. And then again, and their friends see it. And it gives exposure to people that you'd never have otherwise. It's so powerful. I've been blown away by the power of podcasting. I'll tell you that. So
Yeah, it's just a big story because, like, in terms of like podcasting for me initially was just like a radio thing. It was like on an app called Spearmint. People were just using their phones, and people still do that. But it just branched out to say, I have all this equipment as a musician. I said, why don't I take some of my equipment when I actually make videos and stuff? I could go into video podcasting. I didn't make that jump. I did podcasting from 2016 to 2020, never did video until 2020. I felt confident that I had the gear that I could do it with. But it was a big change. because the audio podcast, you don't have to think about how you present yourself in terms of your visual. And
Mhm.
so, and you have to, yeah, it becomes a totally different way of thinking. But I think all musicians or artists, we have a little bit of stagecraft or theater, so we should not be so hard for us to transfer to that, but maybe not.
Well, no, and I agree with you. I mean, I can tell you that I did some cleaning up back there. There's a pile over here right by me. Again, because it does impact, what's in frame and how you're showing yourself. And, one of the podcasts that you did with the gentleman that does, was it Janeed Ahmed that I was watching? It was really interesting because he does those home studios and he talks to people about setting it up so that it's not plain walls and that there's branding and personality inside their home studio. And you can tell that you're a musician partially, in part, due to your background. You've got equipment back there, right? You've got your keyboards,
Yeah, it's all
right?
back there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually doing it from like a studio desk where all my mixing equipment is, and I like the kind of hanging mic, but just because it's like it's the type of mic you use when you sing a song. This
Mhm.
has got like a shield around it, and I just got into it. Well, this mic could really do well, and I said because I use it for vocals, and that's what it's designed for. I said, well, yeah, it's like basically it's a radio kind of condenser type of mic that is typical, but I think it has become kind of iconic for my show. The video version is shows up with this thing, and ever since then, and then I'm wearing you know my own outfit, my
Mhm.
logo. So I got my branding a little bit is like, and I'm using like branding techniques that I've learned over time. But I think that is the whole thing about the visual, is that suddenly you can have your URL up, you can have your
Mhm.
logo, you can have another company's logo, you can run little advertisements or little coupon codes and stuff. It just opens it up that the podcasting platform has a lot of opportunities for you to sync up with other company. And I have done that, but I think maybe you can talk more about how you've been able to use podcasting as a really whole new world in advertising and marketing.
Yeah, so I am loving podcasting. So I used to be a blogger. I used to blog and share information on my website and give similar tips and things like that to for people that are running small businesses, mid-sized businesses on how to do better marketing and get results. Because there's so much information out there that I like to cut through the stuff and get to what's going to really drive results, right? So I was finding that it was really hard for me to blog because I was so tired at the end of the day, or I was tired. I wasn't in the mood to write. I wasn't in the mindset to write. I'm a good writer. I love writing. I couldn't do it anymore. And so when I started podcasting, I- I'm energized after I get done with a conversation because I've learned new things and I've met new people and had great conversations that fuel me. And so my audience gets a better product when I'm podcasting, first off,
Hmm.
because I'm in a better mindset. So it's a much better product. And then when it comes to audience growth, it really does help grow your audience because when your guests share about your being on your podcast and putting that information out, your audience multiplies. I mean, my listens were like a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and then all of a sudden, like it shot up
It gets
because
exponential in some cases. Yeah, you get really crazy growth. It
yeah.
depends. Yeah, yeah. It's been really interesting. 'Cause, like I do a podcast, suddenly my Spotify numbers for my music, because I have the tier. Like I have all my podcasts. My podcast numbers go up, but my
Mhm.
music numbers go up because people, oh, he's a musician. Then people start listening to my work.
Exactly, and so I do a ton of email marketing. Email marketing is one of my biggest passions because I think it's one of the most effective and efficient ways to, really get results and to keep and build that know, like, and trust factor with your audience. Your audience wants to feel like they know you. Another pro for podcasting, because they hear you, and in your case, they hear you and see you, so that they can build a relationship and they start to feel like they know you, right? Then they
Mhm.
like you, and then they trust you because you're consistent in what you're delivering. And that is just so key and so powerful. You add email marketing into that, and it gives you a way to remind people that you're having these conversations and that you're sharing them out. It's so powerful. And then when you're talking about different things, you have the opportunity to share things like what we have down on the screen there. One of my lead magnets, which happens to be a quiz on list growth and your list growth personality, because everybody loves personality quizzes, right?
Mhm.
So you get additional exposure. And then if people want to know more, you can cross sell it. So, I know you've got a couple of sponsors, so there's definitely ways to monetize your podcast and your marketing too. One is sponsors. Another one is things like growing your list. Okay. So, looking at the link, if you choose at the end after you get your results that you want them emailed to you, you join my list. And you would get emails from me about my podcasts and upcoming podcasts with marketing information. And I could have referral links in the podcast. I could affiliate links. I could have, again, different ways to grow my list that allows me to sell products to people or services. There's just so many ways to monetize a podcast, and you don't necessarily have to have a sponsor to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been able to do some interesting things where, our podcast got monetized through, different services that I've been able to link up with. And one of the coolest things we've been able to do is actually monetize our reels. Like in the last year, our Facebook and Instagram got monetized for the reels we create. And some of our reels are podcast related, and some of the reels are like, music related, but all of our reels have been monetized. And
That's
so
fantastic.
that has been like a side income thing, and we're getting thousands and thousands of plays on the reels between both platforms,
That's
and they both
awesome.
got monetized at the same time. And I really believe that the podcast allowed me to monetize my reels, that my music alone wasn't doing it, but the combination of the podcast and the music got me into the tier, and I got also into the tier of being able to be offer subscriptions, and I didn't get that until I was podcasting. So
It's a
it really is,
powerful outlet.
yeah, it's super powerful.
Yeah, and I think people are concerned that the podcasting space is too crowded. I would say it's not. I would say that your audience wants to hear from you. And so you want to think about getting into podcasting if it meets your style. You don't want to force anything, right? But it's not overcrowded. So many of the podcasts that start, I think I saw a stat that like over half of them don't make it past the 8th episode.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of work, because like I said, as a musician and producer, I've got lots of work I could do. I could not be podcasting. I could actually be on my deck producing something, but I find it's valuable because I've gotten leads, like, lead generation. Well, what's lead generation for a musician? Well, lead generation is suddenly another artist sees me and then they say, "Hey, I want you to play bass on my record," or "I want you to produce this tone because I like what you're doing." So even though my numbers might not be numbers that Billboard's going to report on, the audience I'm reaching, what happens with me is I'm actually reaching a lot of producers, and a lot of
Mhm.
people are actually generating art and working musicians that are looking for people to help them. And so I get a lot of opportunities in that way. It's like my lead generation for getting work. I'm getting actually projects to work on. And that is kind of immeasurable. The impact of the podcast has it kept me going. And that's why I haven't stopped, because I've been working on projects since 2016 that my podcast has generated leads for.
And I think the important thing to think about there is that you're building a relationship with these people. They may not have ever met you, but by the time they reach out to you, they feel like they know you because they've heard you have these conversations. and you're building that relationship with them even without talking to them. And that's so they know that they like you, right? And they wanna work with someone that they like, and the fact that you have the sound that they want for whatever it is that they're doing makes it a no-brainer.
Well, it's like the trust proposition because you get cold calls from people and you're like, you don't know who they are, right? It's like you get all these cold calls all over the net, people just like pinging you saying, "Oh, I can do this, and I can do that." But at least with when you do your podcast and you've been doing it for a while, you can kind of show. Well, I've shown I have episodes about just my own work, but I've episodes where I've talked to other musicians, and they get to feel like they start to know me, like you said, they start to, oh, I know what this fandom is about. I know what he's into, right? I
Mhm.
know what he does, what he supports. I support, one of my big things is independent songwriters being able to do what they want to do and not being kind of controlled by the studio system, and so they can have a real voice of who they really are. And that's what I've been a big pitch is to support artists in their goal to be their authentic self. And
I
I
think
think
that's amazing, and I think you're giving them a platform on which to help them do that, because 'cause you've spent all this time and effort building an audience, and then giving them that exposure. I mean, that's just amazing what you're doing for that community.
yeah, and I just tried to expand it. I felt like, well, creative people are all over the place. So somebody who's somebody who's a mentor, or somebody who's a life coach, they're creative in the way that they can help people. They have a talent that they've learned how to actually create courses that actually are like a teacher. They can go and help somebody do something that they're having problems with. And I said, well, that's not that different. Because I always felt that musicians are mentors and life coaches from
Mhm.
John Lennon to Marvin Gaye, they all, Bob Dylan, they all had messages that kind of resonated, and the people took actions from what they said in their songs. And so I've always tried to make the point that I feel music has as much of an impact as a life coach or mentoring kind of situation for large amounts of people. That some people say, well, that's not the same. It's like, well, are you really sure? Because there's some aspects of it that are the same.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think musicians, I mean, they share so much through their work. I'm
Sometimes too
totally
much, sometimes too much.
maybe, but, again, it's so powerful, and what one song or, piece of music does for different people, how they interpret it and how it can change their lives. Music is and art are very, very powerful. I was helping out a nonprofit called the Michigan Abolitionist Project. They had their 2023 conference where they bring together a bunch of the people service providers in, the anti-human trafficking, helping with
Oh,
victims and
that's great.
survivors of human trafficking, and so I was helping with their run some technology for them for the back end of their virtual part of the conference,
Mhm.
but, I mean, so many of those programs, they have art therapy, music therapy. I mean, these women and men, and, they haven't ever been given a chance at life, and they've been trafficked most of it, usually, and art and music, help them get through that. So there's a lot of value that I think musicians and artists play in, like, what you're talking about being life coaches and things like that. To an extent, they're healers too.
Yeah, it's like the shaman kinda aspect. A lot of music is mystical from the '60s, the hippie kind of, mystique or aesthetic was that, the Grateful Dead and the bands like that from San Francisco, they had this kind of feeling that it was a community and that they were all gonna, the Woodstock kinda idea, that it's all kinda like everybody can love each other and it's powerful, and peace and love is a good thing. Right, and that you can actually motivate people to go and call to action to do positive things for people, to
Mhm.
not just be, "Oh, sometimes music can be like it's all braggadocio. It's all about me and I'm making money and like, but I've tended to be like the Neil Young point of view. Like you sing a song like "Four Dead in Ohio," you're trying to make a statement, or Dylan with all his songs, "Times They Were Changing." they made statements, or Marvin Gaye, what's going on. You can have an impact. You don't just have to be all about ego. And
Mhm.
so, it can be fun, but there's some responsibility with musicians where you can realize the power you have and make good choices. And everything's a choice. But I think it's like anything in business. You make choices to make products that elevate people, or maybe could be harmful to people, and you make money. You don't really think about what it could be doing. So I think everything you do in life, you have to kind of think about the impact.
And I think you need to think about why you're choosing to do what you do. I've only ever worked with one person that flat out told me, I said, "So why are you doing this?" And I mean, there were so many benefits to what he was doing. And he goes, "'Cause I like money." And so I worked with him a little bit, and I was like, it just wasn't a right fit, because I like to work with people who are passionate and who wanna do things and understand why they're doing what they're doing and what difference they wanna make. If they don't wanna make an impact, it's not someone I wanna work with, right? And I think that, understanding your why, whether it's making music or making widgets, you can use either one, and understanding that really fuels what you do and how you present it to the world on social media, on your podcast, in on your blog, on your website, in your products, whatever it happens to be. Your why comes out. And you need to really know what that is when you go into doing what you're doing, and it helps clarify all of your messaging and give you better marketing overall.
Yeah, I think, I mean, originally when I did this, it wasn't about money at all. It was like the whole reason I did it was I felt like I had been in radio, like college radio. I'm 55, but what I like doing was the same thing I do now. Is like I like to kind of take the underdog, take the bands I thought, back in the day, it was like the REMs of the world before they blew up. It was like radio DJs at college radio stations that were playing them, right? That we were
Mhm.
playing the bands like the Replacements and REM before they blew up. And would like we'd read Billboard, read Rolling Stone, and a lot of us radio DJs, we were like the indie bands that were on these small labels, even like Nirvana on Sub Pop. Before anybody knew who they were, it was all the radio DJs, the college radio kids. We were pushing these guys because we thought it was authentic. I heard Kurt Cobain before anybody even knew he was big, and I was with a bunch of other DJs, and they saying this guy is unbelievable. And we were saying we thought he should be where he ended up being. How big he got, and I think that has been my motivation, is to actually take bands that people never heard and get them to the audience. Because I think as a musician, you don't just want to keep on hearing the same thing. Yeah, as a fan, I always want to expand people's ears and minds. It's been my mission. But
Well, and you have a passion for different types of musics, right? You don't
everything.
do just one genre, right?
Yeah, it's everything. Like from punk to, I've had classical musicians on, I've had DJs, I've had rock bands from Austria to Germany, South Africa, like new wave. I mean, everything, from jazz to
But that's
folk.
also what you like to play too, right? You like to play a bunch of different things.
Yeah, expansive sound is the whole idea. Is I've kind of taken the idea of expansive sound and tried to apply it beyond expansive sound. And the fact that we're talking is a continuation of my idea. That even as a podcaster, I'm expansive. So the
Mhm.
idea of expansive sound was like I could play one night, I could be channeling Sun Ra, and the next day I could be doing Johnny Cash,
That's
or I could be
great.
playing like New Order, or playing like Guns N' Roses type music, because I like everything. I like from Pink Floyd to listening to Bach, because I'm a musician and I'm a producer, and I think the core I always tell young musicians is don't be so narrow, because everything you do as a musician is inspired by your life experience and all your influences. So if you've got influences like an outlaw country and you're a rapper, like, but you like Johnny Cash, why don't you take a little bit of that and put it into the song? And even though people would say stay in your lane, there's nothing wrong with taking the feelings from another genre or aspects of it. And that's how you actually progress, and you get to be somebody unique, because you're honest with yourself, and you don't tie yourself down. You don't create a glass ceiling for yourself. I think it
And
applies to everything.
yeah, no, I think it does. And I'm laughing because you're saying like stay in your lane. And so I'm always talking to people. I'm like, all right, figure out who your audience is and then be specific, like niche down so that you can communicate and that you can be something to someone. Well, in music, you want to be something to someone, but you want to be unique in its delivery. Because if you're just like, another, repeat of something else, that doesn't fuel people to engage with you.
But the
And so,
problem
yeah,
is, yeah,
variety in music, I think, is good.
well, the problem is the industry has a habit of the A&R people and the industry people will go and try to clone Beyonce 1,000 times. They'll clone Axl Rose 1,000 times, and then they'll burn it out. And they don't seem to understand that over the years they just keep on doing the same thing. They did it with the Beatles and the Monkees and the whole. There was all these Beatle clones from Badfinger to the Beatles created their own clone, Badfinger, uh, which was their own creation, which was a copy of their style.
Mhm,
But the whole idea is like, you know, you have to be the Beatles. And if you're just a clone of the Beatles, you're never going to be as original as the Beatles. And so the idea that you like, how are you ever going to get a Hendrix or a Stevie Ray Vaughan or Stevie Wonder if you just keep on cloning stuff?
mhm.
You're never going to get the advancement unless you're willing to take a risk. And the one cool thing I like today is like the reels and the shorts and the TikToks are getting rid of the gatekeepers.
Mhm.
And sometimes people are coming out of this kind of just people just putting up whatever they want, and they're blowing up. Now, not all of it is the quality that some of the gatekeepers would argue that, oh, well, it's not what we would have allowed to come through. But in some cases, you're getting really exceptional people coming through that you would have never seen. And I think that's what's important about the whole ecosystem for social media now is like if you're willing to put the passion in, no matter what you do, if you're an actor and you want to do a one-shot play on YouTube and just do it, you can do it. If you're an
Yeah.
animator, you could create a cartoon and put it up. So you don't have the restriction. You can kind of go out and do it and see what happens.
Yeah, there's so much power. And so you were talking about a lot of unique and talented musicians. So my husband's one of his favorite musicians is Slash. And
Yeah,
you listen to him play. He's so talented. He plays all these different genres and he can mix it up with, Santana, not just with, I don't know. You've seen a lot
that's
of
why
videos.
Guns N' Roses was so good.
It
Is
was.
the fact that they had a lot of musicians in the band were cross genre guys.
Yeah.
From deep blues to punk to rock. They the guys in the band, like, some of them, like Duff, he loves Prince. He's a known Prince head. And so, the fact that they would appreciate not just the bands in their genre is core to why they were able to be what they were and what they are. Is like any great musician actually is the sum of parts of everything they're into. And
Yeah.
the great ones have, if you really dive into them and you watch documentaries about them, they'll name check all these influences, and you might like, wow, I didn't know they like that. And it's kind of as a kind of a teacher or into music, it is kind of common that the great musicians are very much influenced by a wide array, way wider than what the audience might think.
And I think that that's important. You wanna learn and take in, even in marketing and messages and things from other places. One of the biggest things that I just had a conversation with a client the other day, and they're working on their marketing plan, and one of their tactics is they're gonna benchmark the competition. I'm like, "No, get away from the competition. You wanna do this better, bigger, and different. Don't benchmark your competition. Look at other people that are catering to your audience in a different way or in a different industry. So if you're looking to appeal to attorneys, for some of my clients that are in the business to business space, look to people who are marketing well to attorneys. See what they're doing, not in your same industry. It's always dangerous when you really start to pick people in your own space. So
Mhm.
getting that inspiration I talk with my hands all the
Yeah,
time.
me too.
Uh, Getting that inspiration from other places is key, and that's how you can be different, because the second you start niching yourself in and benchmarking the competition all the time, then you start to be in, like, also ran, and, you're starting to say the same things because you can't get their stuff out of your head. It's a very dangerous place.
Yeah, there's so many people out there. I was just looking at some Fivers that were coming out, and they were like, "Oh, we've got these techniques to clone what's kicking on TikTok." And I'm like, "Okay, I understand what you're doing, but you're just cloning what's in the top 10 right now, and then you're gonna flood it with everything that is like similar." And being a very like experimental musician, I kind of like grimace when hear that kind of thing, because every musician, if you play the blues, you're gonna play something Led Belly or Robert Johnson did. I mean, you're gonna can't get away from the pentatonic scale. That's what it is. But the way Jimi Hendrix played the blues versus the way Stevie Ray Vaughan played the blues is not the same. They're in the same pentatonic scale, but they're not playing the same way. And that's the kind of thing that people need to get away from it, with the sampling and the cloning and the clipping being done today. And it's being done across industry.
Mhm.
People are clipping videos, they're clipping algorithms, they're clipping styles, they're clipping everything. And they're just cloning it, thinking they're going to get the same success. And you're going to overrun the industry. And that's where you do run into like too many artists on Spotify, or too many people trying to be the same person, but not enough people trying to be original, you know.
Exactly. Being authentic is so important to marketing yourself. You need to be you. You need to answer questions the way you would answer questions, not the way you think you should answer questions or somebody else would answer the questions. It's all about you. And so the more authentic you are, the better off you are. I attended a webinar by a woman who, her name's Amy Porterfield. She teaches people how to do courses. I took her course to learn how to build my own courses. And one of the things that she did is she talked about her social media and their plan and how they do it. And she goes, "Well, what we found out is the less makeup I wear and the less perfect my hair is, the more people engage, because they're getting a peek behind the scenes. They
Mhm.
want to see and engage with the real her." And she's like, I'd rather be more polished in some of the pictures, but every time we post one of the ones that are a little bit, we'll say, not quite as polished, she goes,
Mhm.
that's where we start getting the engagement. People want to see the authentic you. That's one of the reasons that new social media network is starting to gain some traction, Be Real, where you're just taking a picture of wherever you're at right at that time. So you're not,
And it grows all.
glamorizing your life, right?
It's kinda like Nirvana when they showed up on the scene, because people forget what was going on. What was going on, you had these kind of corporate design bands, and they were kind of
Mhm.
really, no one to put them down, but they were a bunch of bands that were kind of all being come out of the record system, and they're all being kind of the same, kind of like same look, kind of ripping off Kiss, and being in that kind of structure. And it had been done how many times? And they kept on doing it and kept on doing it, running it to the ground. And then Kurt Cobain is like, he's a poet who doesn't care how he looks. It just comes out there like a Neil Young back in the Crazy Horse days, and just does it like Buffalo Springfield. And that people said, wow, that's refreshing. Then you saw Eddie Vedder doing the same thing. And then you saw, Soundgarden doing the same thing. You had that whole Seattle scene, because these were people who are like, we are just musicians and we just want to come out. We don't want to have pretense. We want to dress up. And then it became like a dress. And
Mhm.
then you actually had the clones being created by the industry to actually have people dress up like Kurt Cobain. So then it became a costume. but
It
but
did. It did. And even though my bio says 15 plus years just to make myself feel younger, Nirvana was in my high school days. So, those were interesting times, and they were different, and they let you be casual and yourself. And I wore a lot of flannel
yeah, it's
and
kind of
jeans.
back to performances are now more back to a kind of stagecraft and people creating images, which is not bad. Bowie was great at that. Prince was great at that. Madonna, Lady Gaga's great at that. there's always a place for Freddie Mercury's. I mean, I can go on and on. There's nothing wrong with having stagecraft. And if you're good, like if you're Freddie Mercury level or Prince level, like that's fantastic when you see somebody that can do it, like a Bowie.
Kid Rock does an amazing stage show too.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
if you've
These
ever
are
seen it.
people that have created a persona or a stage version of themselves, and it's the kind of iconic, and you get into it, and it's kind of the idea. Like Bowie was asked, like, "Why do you do what you do?" And it's like, "Why? It's boring to me to come out as myself," and he did. When he first came out as David Jones, nobody bought the records. Then when he created Ziggy, people bought the record. He said it was because it's theater, and as
Mhm.
I started to embrace the aspects of my personality to have all this kind of theatrical capability. And he was super good at it. He could create these images. And it's really interesting that a lot of, actors, artists, you find that I've talked to so many people in the last, couple of years, is the stagecraft of how you present yourself. And it can even be toward, even as a podcaster, like how you present yourself on your show. It can be authentic, or it can be kind of, you have to think about how you're going to do it. Is that version of yourself that's out there exactly who you are, or just a little bit amped up, or however you want to present it. But the thought about how you present yourself is very important.
And that holds true to everything you do. So, again, if you're looking to market yourself, that's your website, that's your emails, that's your email signature, that's your social media profiles. That's the whole package. That's part of your brand and your branding and your brand identity is it's not just colors and a logo. It's who you are. And if, stage setting and performance is your thing, then you need to reflect that in what you do. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
that's when you resonate with your audience and you end up getting more business.
yeah. I think when you show that you really believe in what you're doing, and the thing about a podcast, from an organic farmer able to show people, like he does a podcast about organic farming, and he's able to show people, like, this is the real thing. This is who I believe in it. I'm doing it. And then it's not just like a blog where you can read it, but when you actually see him in the field showing what he's doing, you're more likely to probably buy it, because
Mhm.
it seems like, well, he's talking to you, he's showing you, and people want to see that. And I think that's why the visual medium is so superior, because as a musician, we can actually show our work. We can actually have people come on, and they play, so
Yeah,
you can
and
actually hear and see them.
a couple trend yeah, no, and a couple and you're hitting on something really important right here. So there's a several different trends that are happening right now, and I'm not gonna talk about, like, all that AI and that fancy stuff because we can just get into,
Oh
like,
no.
real stuff, right?
Yeah.
But short form video, which we just talked about, right? And is a huge trend. People want to keep scrolling through their TikTok feed for 15 seconds. I don't like it when they judge me and say I've been on too long and that it might be time for a break though. And I'm like, "Oh, well, usually that's when it's past my bedtime and I needed to go to bed 20 minutes ago." But the other thing that you're talking about is, yeah, there's an organic farmer out there showing how he's gardening and how he's raising his produce and everything, or, the animals and things like that, and you're seeing the care and he's relating to you to a point where you want to buy from him. Well, if he starts talking about certain products, all of a sudden you wanna buy those products too, right? So influencers, and in my opinion, micro influencers, or I heard someone else talk about micro influencers, you know, every single one of us is an influencer. And you don't need 1,000,000 followers. And actually, people are more likely to believe you if you don't have 1,000,000 followers,
Yeah.
right?
That's what
And
I've been able
so
to cash in on.
well, and for
Some days.
you, yeah, you're an influencer, right?
Yeah.
And so companies are leveraging the power and the reach and your authentic nature to promote and sell their products. And that is huge. So you talk about the power of podcasting, you talk about the power of communicating who you are and what you're doing and making it slightly different. That's amazing. And brands know that you have power and they want to work with you. No, you're not gonna get, $1 million for posting a tweet,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
or maybe
I'm
not
not.
a TikTok, right? But
Yeah.
so it all adds up, right? And if there's stuff that you believe in, then that comes through and it sells products. I
Well,
mean, I'm
yeah,
sure if you talk about some of the equipment that you use on this show, people would want to buy it, right?
yeah, I've run into that. Like, we've got some stuff that we've been given, and it's worked. And the thing is, it's an honest thing. Because if I use a mic or I use a mixer, and people are like, "Oh, yeah, I can see you using it. I can hear you using it, so that's cool." But yeah, the thing is, like the micro influencer, like you're saying, you could have this mega influencer that got 10 million followers. And then people are kind of like start to feel suspect about what do they really believe what they're doing, right? Or people start to wonder. And then the thing with the micro level type of people is like, I actually use the product for real. Right.
Mhm.
I'm a producer. I actually use Modes. I use Rolands. I mean, I'm not faking it. I'm actually using it. So I think there's an authentic when you're actually a working person in your genre. Like if you're my daughter's an artist and she uses paints and pastels and stuff. You use different tools and she uses it. And it's not a fake
Mhm.
thing. She's not, like it's not drinking an energy drink and she really doesn't like it. And, using something that's toward her art. And that type of marketing she's been given pens, she's been given devices because she's a really good artist. And she doesn't have massive following, but the micro level influencer thing is really starting to take hold. There's a lot of people able to take advantage of it.
Well, and yes, and I think that's another key point. There's a lot of people able to take advantage of it. There's smaller niche brands and products, quality products and services being offered by people that you can help bring light to and shed light to. Whether or not you're getting paid for it or getting free product, it doesn't matter, right? If you believe in it, you can share it with your audience and make a difference for somebody else. But, those are two of the big trends. That short form video that we were talking about that, you're monetizing your reels, short form video is huge. And then, you're talking 60 seconds or less. And then the other piece, again, is these micro influencers. Because I don't like saying, influencers are a trend. It's like, yeah, influencers have been a trend.
They've been in trend for a while, yeah.
But now they're in reach for small little companies now, too.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been getting pitches from like companies I never thought would ever talk to me. And I'm
Mhm.
like, and it used to be this like, oh, okay, it's always just music stuff, which is cool. Companies that sell like amps and mics and equipment that I use. And then they started going into things that like, okay, companies that sell, t-shirts or sell clothing and I'm not a fashion type of person. I'm just like I just do what I think is gonna work. I'm not ever gonna try to do a runway thing. I'm not anywhere in that zone. And now I'm starting to get companies that are like, oh, we want you to like, I'm like, really? And I'm just like, I can't believe they want to even talk to me. And it's like, okay, well, I don't even know if I want to do it because I'm not really that type of person. But it's just interesting that things are starting to come along. And I'm looking at it as like, well, I don't even know if I want to do that. But yeah, it's just the world is changing where like they're coming to somebody that I didn't even expect they would want to talk to me. But it's just
Well, and I
interesting.
think it's important. I like how you're evaluating them because they all reflect on your brand. And if it's not authentic to you, it won't come off as authentic to your audience. And if it's not authentic to your audience, then it's not going to work for the company, right? But it could also potentially damage your brand because they're going to feel like you're a sellout, right? That you're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
taking anything that comes your way. We
yeah,
don't
yeah,
want
yeah.
that either.
Yeah, when you're trying to be like somebody that pushes like underground emerging indie artists and suddenly you go with some big brand or something that doesn't seem like it's you.
You
Then
change it, you change out your hoodie for an Armani tux.
yeah, with the smell test is like it's like the people who are like, you got the people who want to be like, I'm into the Velvet Underground. I like the fact that they never made any money. And there's a kind of thing in music where there's certain type of people that are so into critically acclaimed work that never sells, right? So there's some great bands like Big Star or Velvet Underground, like Sunrise, they never sold, but they're critically acclaimed, and everybody says, "Oh, these grades are great," but they never made any money. And that's not the measure of it, but like sometimes you become successful and you're doing what you love and it is what you are into, and it's like, well, I didn't sell out, people just happen to like that song.
Yep.
And so suddenly you finally get the number, and then somebody, oh, you're selling out. It's like, well, I wasn't like trying to, I just did what I always do, and you never know what's going to work.
Hmm.
So it's just like sometimes you're always going to get some like haters in anything you do. Like if you're an actor or an artist, or you do anything, you put out
No,
new
you
music,
post
people are
on
like,
social media, they come out of the woodwork, so you can't listen to them. I think that the key is that it needs to pass the smell test for you. It needs to be authentic to you, and then, that should be what you use to benchmark or to make sure what you want to a to accomplish with it. That helps because, I mean, you're putting indie artists on here that you're trying to give a start to, right?
yeah,
So that's true to who you are, is helping people. And so if the products that you're promoting aren't going to help people do stuff better, right? Or different, then it's not necessarily something that you should be marketing, right?
yeah. I mean, it's just like you just don't want to go into something that's like not not in your zone. But I think the interesting thing you were talking about is the email, because I've heard different people say, "Well, email's dead," and just like and
That's my favorite.
yeah, I get that all the time. It's like I have some things where I run through some email campaigns through automation. I have some automation tools that
Mhm,
will just blow things out, um, based on people who sign up on my website. Because every artist, we create a website. So we create a Fam Electric Ghost website, and it's got email like marketing on it. And when
mhm.
we push out a blog, it automatically blasts out to our mailing list of people who've signed up because they dig what we're doing.
Mhm.
And it's all automated, and we have seen that it has worked, and we heard people saying, "Well, email's dead." And so, well, that's still working. So why are they saying it's dead?
People who say email marketing are dead. They drive me insane. We consume so much email. If email marketing was dead, Amazon wouldn't be doing it. You start to think about it is extremely effective. And I think, one of the things for you and other musicians in your audience is the important piece is you want to stay top of mind. People want to hear from you. They like what you create. And you know what? Sometimes they get busy in their life and they forget. And then you remind them and they're like, "Oh, yeah, no, they just released this new song, this new piece. I need to listen to it." And then they do, and then they're like, "Oh, this was fantastic." And they're appreciative of the fact that you sent them email. People love, well, nobody wants more email, but people love value in their email,
It's
okay?
something I want. Yeah, if I see something from like Moog, I'm gonna pay attention to it because I'm a Moog fanatic. That's just it. But yeah, there's certain things I'm gonna be into. Like
Mhm,
I'm into mountain biking. So if a bike company sends me the latest model, I'm going to probably look at that because I'm a mountain biker. So it's very targeted, kind of like what Google does. But like if there's something you always go to, you're probably going to start seeing that on your page. Like so on my page, I see mountain bikes, I see synthesizers, I see all kinds of gear. And it's like if you look at my page, it's like it's very customized. And I'm an IT guy, so I know why. It's
mhm,
very customized to the way I browse the web and things I look at.
mhm. And I think that it's important. So again, email marketing is definitely not dead. It is one of the most effective and efficient and has one of the highest ROIs, return on investments, of any marketing initiative you can do. And part of that is because it's permission based. Okay. So you're getting someone to sign up for your email list. That means they want to hear from you. They want your tips, or they want to hear your music, or they want what you're going to share. Going back to, again, I'll just use Junaid Ahmed, the gentleman that does the home studios that you had on, was that last week or a couple weeks
Yeah,
ago?
last week, yeah.
And people want to see befores and afters from him, right? You're going to want to sign up to get a tip for a new product that he's doing that's going to help reduce the sound in your home studio or whatever it happens to be, if that's your interest. And so, as long as you're providing value to your audience, you're staying top of mind. I probably get probably around 5 responses a week from my email newsletter. And most of them actually have nothing to do with what was in my email newsletter. Um, 90% of it is like, "Oh, hey, Kendra, we are looking for a new PR person." I'm like, and they're like, "I was thinking it could be you or somebody else." And I was like, "Well, it's not me because I don't like PR." So, but I'm able to introduce them to somebody else. But
Mhm.
again, the reason they thought of me is because I showed up in their inbox, because I sent them an email. I showed up, they saw that, it reminded them of the fact that they had a need, and they reached out to me. Whether it's the right fit or not, doesn't necessarily matter to me. I'm still building a relationship, but it really does help a ton, right?
Yeah,
When you're staying top of mind. That's the power of email. Whether people read it or delete doesn't it doesn't matter. I mean, granted, yes, I would prefer that they read it and clicked. So if you want to join my email list, please feel free at kendracorman.com. And I would love it if you would read it. But again, just seeing your name and what you're sharing keeps you top of mind for what they need.
yeah. I was thinking about bringing a newsletter back. I had a newsletter back in the day, but then I kind of wasn't really focused on it. It was kind of just blasting out notifications on podcasts and albums and stuff like that. So I've gone to more specific things and not a reoccurring newsletter. But I put out so much material that I didn't really have to do the newsletter because I'm always putting something out. But
People
uh,
are following you in different ways and getting notification other ways. But
yeah,
if you think about it, and so for someone in your space, I would actually recommend a segmented group. And again, it depends on your time investment on what you have. But if you segment your list into the people that are interested in your album releases, producers that are interested in you being on in other artists' work, right? And then people that follow your podcast, just to learn and hear unique stories from different people and to learn about new musicians that they wouldn't otherwise hear about. You've got those vast audiences, right? And
yeah,
so they're very different and separate. You could actually share different things with all of them. Now, granted, sometimes that can take a lot of time and you don't necessarily have, I mean, I don't know about you, but
yeah,
I'm out of time. We never have enough time in our lives, right? And so I think it's really important to keep that on our radar and then prioritize where you wanna go, and how much personalization you wanna do. But could you imagine when you drop a new album to let the people that love your music know that that album is out? And
yeah.
also to let the producers know, and then to share other things when you're a guest, musician, I don't know what they call it, sorry,
That's yeah.
um,
Feature, yeah,
a feature musician
yeah.
on, someone else's work, and another, producer sees it, and then they're like, "Oh, that would
This
be
is an
perfect for this other
opportunity for
project."
like AI automation.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity.
because if you could take somebody busy like me, like I'm a IT guy, and that's my day job. I could actually build an automation myself, but I've been doing so many things. I haven't like it's on my to do list to do something like what you just talked about.
Mhm.
But now that I'm like looking at all these AI capabilities, they're suddenly dropping. I can see there being platforms that would do exactly what you're saying. They'll
Yeah.
look at your structure of what your work is,
Even
and
the simple ones like
yeah, all
Constant Contact can take tags inside people's, I'll call them their profiles in your email system, and they can change it out with what's called dynamic content. So, I always use like a clothing company as an example. So even
mhm,
though, I identify as female, my I could go to a website and just buy clothes for my husband because Lord knows he's not buying them for himself. And so if I go online and buy him something, just because I'm female doesn't mean that they should send me the women's clothing. I buy men's clothing there. And so knowing my purchase history, they're able to tag me and then send me the stuff that's going to interest me. Then they can also add some cross sells down below if they think that that would be interesting too. But they're
Yeah.
able to give you stuff that appeals to you based on your history. And I'm talking like simple systems like Constant Contact that are really made for small business and nonprofits can do that.
Well,
So
that's cool.
almost any email system can help you do that, which streamlines the process.
Yeah, I gotta look into that. I actually have been so busy with some new albums and stuff that I have, it's on my to-do list. And so it's cool that you're on the show today because I think this is the problem with every musician or artist. We spend most of our time on the art. And then we know we're supposed to spend time on the marketing, and we're like, oh man, I like, it's more fun for us to work on the album. Right. It's more because like, okay, well, can I give somebody that to somebody else? Because I don't but then a lot of us are independent. So then we've taken the hat that we're gonna do the A&R and the marketing, and then we like, oh, it's really I don't really love doing that, but I gotta do
Mhm.
it. And so yeah, we've got to actually spend better quality time making better decisions to use effective use of our time to do what's the most efficient way and more effective way to do this. And I think that's a big opportunity for people to reach out to the creative class of people and find ways to like say, hey, you don't have to spend tons of time, but if you spend this right amount of time on these ABCD things, you can be very effective and more effective than what you're doing right now.
Yep. Yeah, I think, and again, even if it's as simple as putting together a general newsletter that appeals to all of your audiences, okay. And you could switch up the order based upon who it is. So that way you don't have to create a ton of different content. Cause, I have no idea how you have time for a day job on top of everything else that you do. You're like, I've got a day job. And I'm like, what's this? Um, because podcasting can become a day job or a full-time
Well,
job on
it
its
might.
own, right?
It might. It's kind of like I do so much now, but I still have my other job just because I can do it and it's paying. Being a musician, our paydays, we sometimes it take a while for the people to give us our money. So
Mhm.
sometimes we have to have some other money coming in. But
That's why in the movies, the artists always have the muscle, right? To get the take of the door or whatever it is. I don't know. I read a
yeah,
lot of books, so.
yeah, it's always a problem. But yeah, the podcasting world is getting me a point where like we have some plans for the future, where we'd like to actually go to the countries that we like. If I talk to a band in Tokyo, actually do the interview in Tokyo.
I love
If I
Tokyo.
talk to a band, yeah, I lived in Tokyo for 2 years,
I'm
but
jealous.
from 2004 to 2006. But if I could go to Berlin or go to Australia, because I've talked to bands from those places. And so my next thing is to get a sponsor that actually said, hey, our idea is to take the band day of life in the band, day in the life of the artist, day in the life of the CEO, day in the life of the podcaster, and actually talk to them where they are. And
And what you have to remember is as a sponsor, they want access to your audience. That's what you're giving them. So a lot of people are like, "Well, let's sell them this idea." It's like, "No, my audience is going to love this."
mm,
And we can get you exposure to more people, and this is how we can go about it, because from marketing, that's the value that people have. I talk to all my nonprofits all the time when they have when they're selling sponsorships, people are like, "Oh, I'm having such trouble asking for sponsorships." And I'm like, "Why?" That person's going to get personalized exposure to our donors, our volunteers, our audience. Do you have any idea how much it would cost them to do that on Facebook or Google or
hmm
wherever? Especially since a lot of these people have never even heard of them before, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't think about that." So what you're proposing has just it's got an evergreen life that can give exposure to the audience that you've been building since 2016 through the podcasting and even before that with your music. There's so much value there for a sponsor to invest and
Yeah, I'm working
to
on
be
it.
part of behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's something I'm really pushing to have happen this year. But yeah, it's something I've been working toward. It was in my head, and then I started voicing it, and now I've got some concrete like steps. But yeah, I think that's the whole thing with it's like being an artist. Like I can have something in my head, but until I put it through my piano, like nobody knows about it. It's like so. It's like
Mhm.
you gotta just sit down and do it. And a lot of times, yeah, as artists, that we do, we'll sit down and do it. It's just that we got to follow through on the other things we maybe not like to do, like marketing. So that's the other piece
For
where
me,
we're trying to do better.
bookkeeping, data entry, checking my voicemail, I outsource a lot of that.
Yeah, yeah, a personal assistant. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the next thing.
Well, you need it because it's, what else could you be doing with that time?
Yeah, well, that's what happens. That's when you start like, "Oh, now I gotta have a payroll." I've been trying not to have a payroll, but, like, I think I might get to a point
Join the
where
club.
yeah, I might have to do it. But, thank you very much. We've had a really great conversation. We actually hit the hour, and I was just, "Oh, we actually hit it." But I always encourage people to go to the website. So go to kendracorman.com/quiz and take that quiz, and it will be clickable when we're fully published. We right now are on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, but they will be clickable on those places as well as Spotify video podcast and Apple and a lot of other places we're going to be within the next day.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I loved being a guest and I loved our conversation and I learned a lot of stuff from you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Again, go to kendracorman.com/quiz and check everything out that she has to offer there. We're probably going to be talking to you because of the things we need to do better. So thank you very much, and we'll talk to you again hopefully in the future.
Yeah. Have a great night.